So when you're starting out, when you are starting to analyze a story, okay? Because when you're starting out writing a story, you can start in any way you want. You're just blasting down ideas. When you start analyzing that story, trying to put it together, see what you have, see what's working, see what's not, then you are going to start with the most important piece of the story, right? So we want to start from what is most important in your story and go down to what is less important, right? Because the things that are more important will obviously build to a point where then the less important things are built on top of them, right? The less important pieces, you can't mess with your dialogue if that scene is wrong and the character in that scene shouldn't be in your story, right? So it's like, well, it doesn't make sense to mess with your dialogue if the scene should not be there and these other pieces should not be there, right? So we want to, first off, understand that the framework is helping you understand the most important part of your story to the least important. So the most important piece you're doing is the thematic argument, right? What does that mean? It means the thesis statement of your story. It means this is what my story is about, right? It's a thesis statement. And you don't necessarily have to know this immediately when you start your work on your story, but eventually you're going to get here and you're going to need to say, okay, how is my story actually working? What is making my story work? So when you have a thematic argument, you have a thesis statement. For example, if you're looking at something like, so this is where it can get kind of tricky, right? Because what you are going to do is you are going to build an argument for your story and then express that argument into characters, and then the characters are going to make choices that then show the argument you're making, right? So if we took Star Wars, for example, the argument there is ultimately people should choose to throw off, the systems above us, right? Throw off their way of doing things and adopt, a more human life-focused, energy force-based reality, this kind of thing. That's kind of messy. I think a clearer one is probably, Little Miss Sunshine's is very clear. So in Little Miss Sunshine, the argument is people's rules and systems of status don't matter. What matters is the people that are closest to you. Choose the people closest to you over other people's versions of winning and losing, right? So if you take Little Miss Sunshine, it's making the argument, choose the people closest to you over playing status games, essentially. Version of that, right? Once you have this, now you have one side of your philosophical conflict already. So once you have your thematic argument, now you're coming down into here and you're setting up your philosophical conflict. And then here, you're saying, okay, well, choose people over status games, right? So we can say, okay, that's going to be this side, right? The people, or choosing people. Whoops. Or choosing family might even be a better way to say this, or, choose family and, choose your own self-expression, right, is another way to say what's happening in the film. So, and this is a note that I'd like to make here. That when I'm analyzing a movie and I'm trying to re-explain the argument that they're making in that movie over and over again, it's because in a well-externalized movie, the characters are now the symbols of what's happening in the story, and they're not saying this overtly, right? That's the sign of a story that's working, right? And so then Now we're coming back behind them and saying, okay, I can see the two sides that they have here, and now I'm putting words to those sides to analyze them. So we have choose family, choose your own self-expression. Then the other side is play status games, right? Play status games, look for other people's approval. There are winners and there are losers, and if you are not a winner, you're a loser. Now we have the two big sides of your conflict. Now, this is also where your concept can then come into play, right? So if your concept is here, it's like now you have these two sides, right? Choose family, choose your own self-expression. Don't play the status games of other people. It's not about winners and losers. It's about the people closest to you versus play status games. It is about winners and losers. You can't just hang out with losers. You have to go be a winner, right? Now you can then conceptualize these into the story itself, right? So how does this happen in this story? Well, the status games that are being played in Little Miss Sunshine is the beauty pageant, right? Our main character, Olive, wants to win a beauty pageant. Okay, what is that beauty pageant? Whoops. Why did it do that to me? No. Okay, there we go. Got to make sure you guys are seeing this all good. Great. Okay. So what is this beauty pageant? Okay, the beauty pageant, put this maybe here. The beauty pageant is an externalization of playing a status game, right? Status games are an idea. Don't play status games or play status games. That's an idea. Now, how do we take that idea and we place it into a story very clearly? Beauty pageant. Also, her father heavily believes in winners and losers and believes that you are absolutely one of the two. And he is desperately trying to get a book deal. Right? So her about this, essentially, it's like a motivational speaking book deal type thing. Right? So these are the status games being played in the story. And now we have the other side of the concept, which is the family, the dysfunctional family. Dysfunctional family on a mission to get here to the beauty pageant, right? And so now the family becomes the externalization of the family side, right? It's going to be about choosing the people closest to you, so we create the people closest to our main characters, and then we create this dysfunctional family. Now our story concept is a dysfunctional family is heading to this beauty pageant, and it's the most important thing to Olive, and they might be late. We have the basic plot that we're heading on, right? So the idea is that you can walk from what you want the story to be about from a belief level, choose people over status games, understand the two big sides of that in your philosophical conflict, then express that in the story world. That is now your concept. And then from there, you can continue forward. From here, you can then go, into, okay, well, now we have a concept. Now we have the two sides of the philosophical conflict. Now I can create a character web and say, okay, we know what the viewpoint 1 is. We know what the viewpoint 2 is. Now, how do we talk about the positive expression and the negative expression of those two sides, right? So what you're essentially doing here is saying, okay, I have a concept, I have a philosophical conflict. Now, my concept is my first externalization of that conflict. My characters and their actions and how they view things are also going to be the other expression of this, right? So we have, let's say, don't play status games here. Don't play status games versus play status games. now we have Olive is our main character in the story. She starts over here, right? She wants to go to the beauty pageant. Why? Because she believes in playing status games. Because of who? Olive's father. I forget his name. But he is the con of this side, right? He's also playing status games, and he's really intense with this, right? There's winners, there's losers, and his big fear is being a loser, which also then transfers to Olive in the story. Olive also fears being seen as a loser by her father, right? And so now they have this interaction, right? Olive is being challenged by her father's worldview, and she wants to prove to him that she is not a loser. Now, on the other side, we have, another piece of this is we have, what's his name? The Michael Scott character in the story. Not Michael Scott. What's his name? Hold on. Little Miss Sunshine characters. Give me a list. Frank. Okay. Let's see. Making sure everybody can. Oh yeah, I do need to scroll down. Shoot. It's just never big enough. Okay. Maybe this will be good. I'm just gonna zoom out here, and you guys can see it this way. Hopefully. So then we also have Frank over here. Frank was playing status games, right? Before we meet him in the story, what was Frank doing? He's trying to be the number one Proust scholar in the world, right? Why does he want to be the number one Proust scholar in the world? Because he's playing status games. Because he wants to be the cool guy who's the most important scholar of the other guy. He's playing status games, but now his life has fallen apart, and now he is a representation of what happens when you play status games too long, right? Now he's sitting down here in this negative, and his life is essentially over, right? And then you could also have, I think you have Grandpa maybe is here. Grandpa is fully not playing any status games in the story, right? He is done with that. He says what he wants. He talks about what he wants. He does drugs when he wants to do drugs. He is a crazy guy, right? He's doing whatever he wants whenever he wants. And he is not playing any status games. Anybody who doesn't like him can screw off. He doesn't care. Maybe I'm not sure whether he's up here or down here. I'd have to think about that a little bit more, but he's definitely on this viewpoint side. But I think he is probably positive because he is the mentor character to Olive. So he's the most important sort of Yoda type character in this story who is mentoring our protagonist, right? We have her father speaking to her on one side, who he's the big voice on that side. Then on the other side, we have Grandpa, as well as Olive's mother, who I can't remember all of these character names, but she's also sitting over here, also not playing status games, but also wants Olive to be happy, right? So she is not playing a status game, but she's doing this beauty pageant because she wants Olive to be happy. And then we also have Dwayne, which I don't know, maybe he's not the con or the negative side. I'd have to think about that. But Dwayne is trying to do his own, Dwayne is probably also playing status games because he's trying to become in the Air Force, and that's his whole big goal. So he is also likely sitting over here. He's not here, at least when we meet him. And so then Dwayne is also starting the story over on this side because he's trying to get into the Air Force. He is working really hard to do that, and he's taken a vow of silence. And he's doing his own way of playing this game, but he's still playing the game, right? He's trying to rebel, but his father admires him. And that's how I was thinking here that he has to be over here on this viewpoint 2 side because his father admires him for what he's doing. He's working hard. He has this goal because him and his father agree, even though the way that they're going after what they want is very, very different. Who's the negative here? I would have to give some thought to that. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's grandpa, but that probably doesn't make sense. I'm not quite sure who it might be there, but that helps. Hopefully that helps to give a sense of what your thematic argument is, how this is then coming into your philosophical conflict to create these two meaningful sides in opposition, create these two sides of your concept, right? Which all these are is, okay, now we can brainstorm what our story's actually going to be about, right? Like the concept and the characters, this is what your story's about. Like this is what we are watching on the screen happening. Okay, we're not watching this stuff happen on the screen, but you have to know this and inject it fully into the story so that this piece down here is super powerful, super meaningful. So hopefully that is helpful to you guys.